have on the program Akbayan Party-list Representative Chel Diokno. Good evening, Congressman. Welcome to the big story.
Good evening, Seth. Good evening, Sean, and everyone watching or listening.
First of all, let's touch on the so-called apology of Congressman Suntay. Won't there be any move in Congress to refer his statements to the Ethics Committee for investigation?
I understand that there may be some moves in that direction, but I am not privy to any, I don't have any direct knowledge if any complaints have in fact been filed.
All right, now let's go to the impeachment complaints which passed the test of substance. What are the next steps?
Well, the committee will be sending the directive to the Vice President to submit an answer within an unextendable period of 10 days. If the Vice President does file an answer, the complainants in both impeachment complaints will have 3 days to file a reply. If they do so, then the Vice President will have a period of 3 days as well to file a rejoinder, which is an answer to the reply.
She may waive her right to appear before the committee, but what would be your own sense?
Well, that would really be up to her. The rules provide that if she does not submit an answer, there will still be a next stage, which will be the presentation of evidence. And after which the committee will be able to then make its determination whether there is enough grounds to bring this to the plenary and to proceed with the impeachment case.
In the presentation,
this is,
go ahead, sir.
Yes,
Go ahead.
Yes, this is the most important stage, I believe, in the House of Representatives when it comes to impeachment. Dito po natin susuriin ang ebidensya. Dito malalaman ng mga miyembro ng committee kung talagang may sapat na basihan ang mga alegasyon laban kay Vice President Duterte.
Kasama na po ba dito ang pagbukas ng kanyang bank accounts? May dahilan po ba na maibibigay sa komite para kumuha ng mag-issue ng subpoena duces tecum, for instance?
May mga alegasyon na napapaloob sa parehong complaints, yung third and fourth complaints tungkol sa unexplained wealth, tungkol sa mga bank accounts and in relation to the salins of the Vice President. So there is a basis for that, yes.
And will you move for that?
That remains to be seen. I don't want to prematurely announce any measures that may be taken. Siguro mas maganda kung abangan natin ang mga susunod na kabanata.
Okay. Mabilis na nangyari, Congressman, ang mga hearing ng committee tungkol sa form and substance of the impeachment complaints. Were you surprised at the pace?
No, the chair of the committee, and I must commend her for her handling of the proceedings, is under time, is under the gun when it comes to time because ang binibigay ng ating konstitusyon ay 60 days.
60 days.
To come, not only to do all the presentation of evidence, but to come up with the report and the resolution, bring it to plenary. And that, given the number of, the fact that we're going to go on recess at the end of March, and then adjourn also in May, that really imposes a lot of pressure on the committee to finish its work before then.
Congressman Diokno, I was just wondering kung nagulat kayo sa naging resulta ng botohan. As we know, Congressman Suntay was the lone one who voted no. No abstentions, everyone else voted yes. Was that what you expected?
Well, we have to remember that last year, pretty much the same, based on the same complaint, more than 1/3 of the members of the House approved it and then filed the articles, the verified complaints, which later became the articles of impeachment. So I don't think it should come as a surprise.
And that's my next question. Actually, do you think the plenary, that you'll get the same support from the plenary when it comes to a vote finally?
If the vote earlier today was any indication, where there was only one negative vote, no abstentions, and completely all the members of the committee voted in favor of form and of substance, then that will be a good sign as far as what may happen in the plenary. But I have to stress this, that it will all really depend on what evidence comes out in that stage of the proceedings before the Committee on Justice. And yun nga yung bagay na matagal nang iniintay ng taong bayan. Actually, last year, talagang everyone was eager to get to that stage when, if you recall, when the articles were transmitted to the Senate. Yun lang, naantala at dumating na doon sa punto na hindi na nga natuloy yung impeachment last year. So this is now the time for the committee to assess the evidence and to see whether there is enough evidence to hold a high official like the Vice President accountable.
Well, the basis also of the question of Sean, I believe, was because there were concerns that with the president, with the vice president's early declaration that she would run for the presidency, that declaration may affect the appetite of congressmen to support the impeachment complaint.
I don't think it makes a difference because whether or not the Vice President had made a formal declaration, she has not kept her plans of running hidden. It's very apparent, I believe, to everyone and even to the members of Congress. So palagi ko, hindi wala naman nagkaiba sa kanyang formal na deklarasyon.
And Kong, also today, Vice President Sara Duterte filed a case against Ramil Madriaga. Yun po yung, kumbaga, yung bagong factor in this year's impeachment complaints, the Madriaga affidavit. Do you think in any way makakaapekto ito sa galaw or sa takbo ng impeachment?
It's no surprise that that was done by her camp. I don't think that will affect the assessment of evidence kasi pag humarap si Madriaga sa amin, sa committee, kami na mismo ang mag-a-assess kung nagsasabi ba siya ng katotohanan o hindi. And the rules provide that we can cross-examine any witness who comes forward. And of course, as you know, the purpose of a cross-examination is precisely that, to find out kung talaga may laman yung sinasabi at kung nagsasabi siya ng katotohanan.
Now, if we may shift topics to the anti-political dynasty bill at the House and withdrawal of the minority support from what you perceive as a watered-down version. What can you say about this?
We were quite surprised at the process that unfolded during the hearing yesterday morning because we felt that it was not those were not the usual and appropriate steps that should be taken, especially in a bill as important as the anti-political dynasty bill. Kaya ang naging pasya namin ay kung ganyan lang ang mangyayari, ay hindi namin, wag na. Because if from where we're coming from, the bill we filed calls for a fourth degree of affinity or consanguinity prohibition. To where they're going, in terms of what was adopted by the Committee on Suffrage, ay sobrang malayo. You know, of course, there's got to be a middle ground somewhere, and we're willing to find that middle ground. Pero it has to be reasonable naman.
Congresswoman Janet Garin said, of course, to be realistic, some compromises should be made. But for you guys, is this like too much of a compromise on your end?
Yes, given the contents of what was adopted by the committee.
Do you still have confidence that this will pass? Of course, the Senate was also deliberating, so I'm sure you tuned in to at least some of the finer points of their deliberations, Congressman.
Yes, we are very acutely monitoring what's happening in the Senate. And that's going to be a big factor as well in terms of what kind of middle ground can be reached in the House. I just hope that all sides to, all the proponents of the bills in the House are willing to really find a reasonable middle ground.
And what is that for you?
It's very hard. I don't want to show my cards at this point. This is something that will be subject of a lot of negotiation, and that will depend on what positions are taken in the coming days and weeks. Where everyone knows what the bill that we filed is there. It's about the broadest bill on anti-political dynasty. But at the same time, we are realistic and pragmatic enough to be open to finding a middle ground.
Okay, but generally speaking, Congressman, are you guys willing to settle or better ba na wag na lang at ipagpaliban na lang natin kung hindi talaga amenable doon sa final version ng bill?
Well, kung ganito lang ang mangyayari, ang tingin namin ay imbis na maging anti-political dynasty yung bill kung sakaling magiging batas siya,
Mas lalo.
it will in effect legitimize political dynasty. And that's exactly the situation we want to avoid.
Parang Trojan horse itong bill na nangyari.
Ay, hindi galing sa akin yan. That's your words.
Para daw kasi nagiging pro or protective of political dynasties instead of the opposite.
Anti-political dynasty bill, which legitimizes, isn't that a Trojan horse? But anyway, Congressman, tila sa focus ng media and Congress sa impeachment complaints laban sa Vice President, medyo nakakaligtaan na ba ang flood control scandal?
Hindi naman. Sa tingin ko, in fact, I'm one of those who believes that we should continue with an investigation into that. Kasi ang laki ng epekto niyan, pag inisip natin yung nangyari dyan sa flood control, hindi lang naman flood control yan eh. It reflects a big defect in the system kung pati yung budget process ay ginagawa ng gatasan. If you recall, based on the testimonies of some of the witnesses from the DPWH, yung mga commission quote-unquote nila ay depende sa stage ng budget. I mean, that really shows that a total, they really murdered the budget and used it not for the purposes of development for the people, but rather for their own enrichment. And that system must change. We must discard that and bring it back to its original purpose.
The
reason why we
minority,
have a budget process is precisely so that we can uplift the lives of ordinary Filipinos. Hindi na ang nangyari.
Congressman, the minority was pushing for the legislation of this measure that would create the independent commission, give it more teeth. Whatever happened to that measure?
Your
IC,
question
AIC.
Yes. I was one of those who filed the Independent Commission Against Infrastructure Corruption bill together with Congresswoman Laila De Lima and other members of the Reform Bloc. We are ourselves in a quandary as to why it is not moving in the House when it is part of the LEDAC and it's a priority of no less than the President. And every single opportunity we have, fina-follow up po namin yan sa House leadership. Pero hanggang ngayon, pinagpapasapasahan at kung hindi dinidribble, pinagpapasapasahan. More than what's happening in a basketball game.
Can you go into more detail, Congressman Diokno, para rin matulungan namin kayong habulin, no? Kung ano na nagyayari dito sa bill creating the ICAIC. Paano po yung pasapasahan?
Deadma sila.
No, ganito ang nangyari ha.
Sige.
As early as, let me recall the exact time periods, as early as before the Christmas break.
Yes.
Natapos na yan sa committee. We worked on that. I was part of the technical working group. We came out with the report. It was supposed to go to the Committee on Appropriations, which is the only purpose of that is so that to ensure that there is sufficient appropriations for the bill. And we kept following it up, but apparently it was only taken up recently, based on what I was told. And I was also informed that it's somehow going back to review by a committee, and I am myself trying to find clarification kung ano bang nangyari. Kasi imbis na umusad siyang forward, ay parang it's going backward. And
So,
I don't think that's acceptable.
so is it the Committee on Rules? Ano po ba ang, hindi siya naka-calendar for plenary? Because
Yes.
na-report
As
out
of
na ng
now,
committee.
hindi pa siya naka-calendar for plenary.
Okay. So, the next question is, ito ba, is the administration just, parang pogi points lang ba ito na, it's part of the LEDAC, it's certified as urgent, and then wala. Parang performance lang.
Baka naman magandang maitanong sa Malacanang. Considering na wala ngang nangyayari sa bill, kami House Bill 4453 and the consolidated version, ano ang panawagan nila sa House leadership?
Yeah.
I'm a member of the minority, so I'm not privy to what's happening in the majority, but
Yeah.
of course the president and the members of his department can easily call on
Yeah.
and find out what's happening and ask them to move it as quickly as possible.
In the same vein, if the president is serious also, because he did say that he wanted Congress to pass an anti-dynasty measure, then itulak din niya.
Yes. In fact, ang panawagan namin noon pa ay i-certify na niya as urgent para talagang
hindi pa ba?
to send the message. And not just to say that it's a priority, but to certify it formally as urgent.
Okay, balikan ko lang very briefly yung ICAIC. So ngayon nasa APRO committee ulit, no, yung bola. Like you said, Congressman Diokno. Pero in your opinion, yung galaw kasi ng kaso, and I know you're a lawyer, so you're maybe familiar with the more realistic and slower timeline, no, than those observing. Do you think yung andar ng mga kaso ay mabilis-bilis naman, comparatively speaking?
You mean you're referring to comparing this to a court
The
case?
flood control cases po.
Well, in the first place, I am not privy to what is the stage of those cases. I'm basing it only on the reports I've seen in the news na supposedly may mga na-file. Hindi ko rin alam kung tapos na yung preliminary investigation. So far, I'm not aware of any cases that have actually been filed in court. Unless you have heard anything that I haven't heard. But that's precisely why we were calling and we continue to call for an ICAIC. Because an independent commission with teeth created by Congress can do the right coordination to ensure that the cases are filed as quickly as possible and the cases have the evidence needed to secure a conviction. So, at the end of the day, yun naman ang hinahanap natin na magkaroon ng accountability. So many cases of corruption have been exposed over how many years, but number one, they take very, very long, and sometimes at the end of 10 years or 20 years, wala rin naman nangyayari at na-absuelto yung mga akusado. That's why I have another call, which is that I truly believe that the Supreme Court should impose a very strict time limit on corruption cases. Because corruption cases, ang biktima ang sambayan ng Pilipino. Why is it that corruption cases in our country can last up to 10, 20, or even 30 years? That betrays justice. It really is an aberration that we should not, that's totally unacceptable. Any corruption case should not take longer than 3 years in trial and 2 years in appeal. Unfortunately, when the Sandigan Bayan and the courts appeared before us in the last budget cycle, I found out from the data they gave us that there are corruption cases that have been pending in the Sandigan Bayan for 10, 20, 30, and even up to 38 years. That is really unacceptable. If we're serious about accountability, hindi dapat mangyari yan.
And what do you want the Supreme Court to be doing?
I believe that they have the power to instruct the lower courts, especially the Sandigan Bayan, that beginning now, all corruption cases, especially the flood control and others involving huge amounts of money, be finished, the trial within 3 years and appeal within 2 years. Because any case that lasts more than 5 years, ang daming pwedeng mangyari. The witnesses can change their minds, they can go abroad, they can be influenced or intimidated, the prosecutors might lose interest. If the appeal takes forever, then even the people will forget about the case.
Well, we thank you for your time. That was a wide-ranging discussion on various issues. Akbayan Party-list Representative Chel Diokno.